Hello, this is Mr. Doty, and I'm not sure where my little icon went telling me that I'm recording, but we're going to go for it and hope that we are. As you can see on your screen here, we have P-41, and this is the first assignment for my CAD 100 class in Chapter 4. And I found that we might need a little help with how to draw our orthographic projections, multi-view projections, however you want to call it. And so we're going to try this and see how it goes. So I know my picture on the screen isn't that great, but at least you have a visual and you can see what you would be looking at in the book. Now, some people, they try to duplicate this drawing right here. And that's not what we're trying to do. This is what we call an isometric drawing, and you're going to do a couple of these later on, but this is not what we're up to. So just to give you a heads up and let you know that this is not the end product. The end product that we're going to do actually is 3 different views, and there's a complete separate lecture, or will be, if I haven't already done it, on what is multi-view projection and how does it work, and what are the things you're looking for, how do you do it, what is it, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to cover that part, but what I am going to do is go over the fact that we need 3 different views. We need a front view, which, if my mouse is working here, the front view is going to take care of, have this little rectangle here. It's going to have this funky wedge-shaped rectangle here. And that's all I'm going to see in the front view. The top view is going to have this rectangle here. And there is no rounded part. It's just because the way the camera is looking at it. And the top view is also going to have this rectangle here, and then there's going to be a square or rectangle, I think it's a square in this case, shape that represents this angled or sloped surface. So that's all I'm going to see in the top view. Now, for those of you that can visualize this, you may be going, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. If I had my 3D object that we use in class, I could rotate it around and show you exactly kind of the same idea. Now, as far as a side view, the world is right-handed, and that's just the way it is. Well, I'm left-handed, and I guess I'm stubborn sometimes, and whatever, but that's another point. And the thing is, and I like the way that the author of this book, how she did it, she actually put in drawings that make you want to draw a left-sided view, even though the views that you will see typically and gets pounded into everybody's brain is draw a right side view, draw a right side view. You have to draw a right side view. Well, guess what? You draw the views that show the features the best. The side view and all the other views are based off of what you choose as your front view. And your side view that you choose to draw needs to be the one that has the least amount of hidden lines and shows the features that you want to show the best. That's it. So when I'm choosing a front view, this right here, and don't worry about which way is this thing pointed. You want to look for what is the longest dimension, okay, along the base of the part. What's the longest dimension? That's going to be the width of your length, width, whatever you want to call it, of your part. I do length or width this way, depth is back here, and then of course height is how tall it is. you know, your math people, they go length and width, and I'm like, no, 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 no. It's depth, it's length or width, whatever you want to call it, and then height. So anyway, those are your 3 dimensions, and that's how you find them using this little block here. Alright, so let's move along, and let's move over to AutoCAD. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way. Oh, there's my little recorder thing. Hey, I'm going to scoot him over here out of the way as well. Okay, so that took 5 minutes just to kind of explain what the heck we're trying to do here. And that's okay. It's all good. So if you're worried about, you know, the little file and where it's at, well, here he is. And you know what? We can make him a little bit smaller, and we'll just stick him kind of over here, out of the way. Alright, so this is what we're going to draw. Now, the first thing we need to do when we start any kind of AutoCAD drawing is we need to think about what are our limits, do we need to adjust our units, and if we have to adjust our limits, then you know, we may need to do a zoom all so that we are zoomed out in our layout here, or I'm sorry, in model space. And that's where you want to be, is model space. Now hopefully you're using your template, which you should have already created by now, and or you would have at the beginning of this chapter 4. You do it right before this. And you would have layers set up, right? I'm going to go to my object layer, since that's where I want it to be. And you know, I have all these other layers set up so that, you know, I have hidden lines, I have center lines. We don't really use the phantom line much, but I have it there. I have a text layer, I have a dimension layer, which we'll use later, a hidden line layer, and then we have our layer 0, which is always there, and so on. So those are our layers. The next thing, like I said, I would do is we look at our part. It's 4 by 2 by 2, and that means that basically the front view would be 4 by 2. The top view is going to be 4 wide and 2 deep, and then the side view is going to be 2 by 2. Okay. So when I'm drawing, first of all, let's go back to the limits before I get too far. So in that case, that means that when I lay out a front and a side view, it's going to be a 4, and then the depth would be 6. So what are my limits? Let's look them up. Limits, then you hit enter, and you look down at the bottom, which for some reason this thing's not been parked. So let me do a little work here. Alright, so let me make sure it's back in limits, enter, and it says it's 12 by 9. Well, in the grand scheme of things, this is going to work. So I'm not going to worry about it. The other thing I would do is I could do a zoom all. I don't know if this template is zoomed out or not, but here, let's do zoom all. Oh wait, I'm in the middle of something. I should have finished my limits command, I'm sorry. Anyway, so you finish your limits command, make sure it's good, then you do zoom all, and you go from there. So what do I need to do first? So the way I do it is I lay out how big my views are going to be so that I can see how they're related. And some people do that. Some people try to draw a front view, then they try drawing their side view or their top view. And that's fine, but if you will, and it's fine if you listen, it's fine if you don't, and I'm not going to, you know, say one thing or the other. But what I do is I draw, like, my front view box that I need to use is 4, 2 big. So as long as I have, and we've talked about this before, as long as your dynamic mode is on, and if you don't see this down here, then you click on your little stripe, you click dynamic input, make sure it's checked there, and then it will show up here. It looks like a little battery with a little plus thing on it. You want to make sure that's on. As long as that's on, you don't have to put in the @ symbol when you're doing a relative coordinate. For example, if I want to do another rectangle, and I hover over this corner and I move it over a little bit and I pick, and then I say -2 because I'm going left for X, comma 2. I better move that back up in case it goofs up. Uh-oh, I did something wrong. So let's try it again. So I'm going to try here. That's weird. Alright, -2, comma 2. There we go. So that's what happens when you let go of your mouse. So if you use your left hand to type stuff in and you use your mouse, keep your hand on your mouse, life works a lot better. Alright, so it just so happens that this guy is the same size as the top. So I could either draw another one of these, which is really easy. Go to rectangle. If you hover over your point, you can start and not pick. Don't pick. Then you come up. Once it's locked on, then you move up, and then you can type in your 4, comma 2. There it is. The other thing I could have done is use the copy command and pick this, enter, pick the starting point, and then, moved it on up. Now, something else we need to look at is make sure that you have polar tracking on, which, what does that mean? Well, polar, you've got polar and you've got ortho mode. Some people, old school, they use ortho mode, but guess what? You only go left and right and up and down. That's it. Well, with your polar tracking, or your polar, you can set what it will lock, and it doesn't have to stay locked, but it will. It's kind of like a drafting machine. It'll actually stop every so often if you set it to it. So I set mine to 15 degrees, which works pretty well. I also make sure that my object snap tracking is on. It helps things line up really well. And then I make sure that I have certain things turned on here. Some people tell you just turn them all on, you'll sort it out. Well, you can have too much of a good thing. So what I recommend is obviously your end point, center. I add midpoint because I use it a lot. Sometimes I'll turn quadrant on if I know I'm going to be using circles a lot. Intersection, extension, and apparent intersection are the other ones that I use a lot. The rest of these, you can type them in if you need them. You can shift right click and pick them. Or if you need it, tangent doesn't work well unless you type it in or you shift right click. I'll just tell you that. Perpendicular works better that way. Parallel works better that way because you have a certain specific time that you need to use it. So we'll get off our little soapbox and we'll move along. So that's kind of the drawing setup, just to make sure you're clear on that. Okay, so I have front view, side view, top view. The next thing, before I can really use these boxes, what I need to do is I need to use my little explode command. And, you can type in EX, and there it is, explode. I think X is the shortcut. And I'm just going to use a crossing window from right to left. Pick, don't hold it down, otherwise you get that funny little, lasso window. And then you pick, and there it is. And then you just hit enter, which I use the space bar a lot. It's a nice big enter key. It only works as a space bar when you're in text. Otherwise, it's enter. So remember that. So now each one of these is separate lines, right? So let's look at our views. And like I said, the reason I'm drawing a left side view is because I have this line coming across here. If I looked on the other side, it would be hidden, right? If I was looking from over there, this would be hidden from here to here. On the left side, however, you see this line. Alright, so let's get to drawing. So the first thing here is it's 0.5, if you can see that. It's 0.5 from the bottom up to the next line. So what I'm going to do is offset 0.5, enter, pick this, and go up. Well, while I'm at it, in the side view, I would see the same thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw it up. Now, the other thing that I haven't drawn in that I like to use a lot is what we call the miter line. Now, I haven't gotten to where I could project something from this view over to this one, or from this one back up. But what I do is go to line, hover over your corner, hover over this corner, and then where they intersect you can pick, and you're basically making a temporary point. And then you can draw your line up here, and notice that it's locked at 135 degrees, which is 45 degrees over on that side of our grid. You know, if we were going around the origin, that would be 45 past 90. And you know, I can just draw the line and pick. I could also have hit tab and gone over to the angle and made sure it was 135. But that's why I use polar. Alright, so I'm good with that. So now if I want to transfer a line from here to here, I can. Okay, so I'm about good with the front view for now. So I'm going to move up to the top view. And you're like, but why don't you just finish drawing the front view? Well, I'll show you. Because you can finish drawing the front view if you want. It doesn't matter. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to offset, and this line running across here is 1 inch back. So I'm going to use 1, enter, and I'm going to knock this guy back. And I'm actually going to do it down here as well. Now, if I wanted to, I could draw, after I got out of offset, I could draw this line, draw a line over and down, which is what I'll do in a minute just to show you instead of using offset. So I'll go out of offset, and if I wanted to show this line down here, I can go to line, draw a line over to my miter line, and then draw it down, and there it is. It just so happens that it's on the midpoint of the line. Doesn't always happen, but there it is. And then what I would do is I would go into trim, and I would trim. And it just so happens I don't need this line either. And I also don't need this piece of a line here. So remember, when you use trim, you want to pick the items. Here, I'll just show you again. Undo, undo. So when you go into trim, you want to pick the items that cross the parts of the lines or parts of the geometry that you want to get rid of. So like this guy crosses this line. This guy, this crosses this line, so I'm going to pick him, and then I need to pick this one because it crosses this one. So you pick those, you hit enter, and then you pick what you want to get rid of, and you can actually use a crossing window as a fence, and there it is. So actually, this view is done. You're like, what? Yeah, it's done, that's it. Alright, I don't need this. And I'm actually done with my miter line, so I could delete it. No big deal. The next thing I would do is I would go into offset, and you'll notice that it says this is 3 inches from here over to here. So I'm going to put in 3, and then I'm going to offset this over. And then I'm going to use my trim command. Pick this line, enter, get rid of that, boom. There's my top view. You're like, really? Yeah. So the side view is complete, the top view is complete. Go to line. You can either pick or just drag it down till it hits the top here. Then pick. Then draw your line over to that corner. Enter, and go into trim. Pick this line. Get rid of these two, and guess what? There you go. Boom. Done. Now, as far as drawing the views, that's it. Now there's one more step. You're like, oh man, really? One more step. Well, in tennis, that's something we always say because we always seem to need that one more step before we hit the ball and make that awesome, volley or return. So if you're into tennis, you'll understand what I'm saying. There's always, you miss that one more step that you should have taken. So one more step is what units are we using? Now, not the units that we would set AutoCAD into, because basically decimal covers what we're doing right now. What I mean is, what are the units of this drawing? Is it inches or is it metric? Well, obviously, in this case, it's inches. So I would go down here to my inch layout, and since I'm close to the origin, and apparently this is lined up with that, it's pretty close, but I need to move these around. And how do I do that? Well, there's two ways I can do that. I can double click inside of here. Notice that this is bolded and this turns to model, and then I can hold down my middle mouse button and pan, or you can hit P enter and move it around. The next thing is to deactivate it, you can double click outside the box. And like I said, the other way so you double click inside to activate, double click outside to deactivate. Your other option is click on paper, it goes to model, it activates. Now when it activates, you'll get another little box down here, and it has some different scales in it. Now I've already set mine because I tried to explain in class or in the template video. You just leave it at 1 to 1 because a lot of your things start out at 1 to 1. You can start off with that scale to go with, first, and then move to whatever you need to. So anyway, so 1 to 1 is what I'm at, and that is a normal scale. That's great, and I'll automatically have this updated. If you don't have this set as a field, then just make sure that you change this to 1 to 1. So before I get that far, hang on. I'm done picking my scale, so 1 to 1 is fine. It's not going to move. Let's go ahead and deactivate. And some of my students, they lock the viewport, which really messes me up, because then I'm like, I can't figure out how to mess with it, and oh, it's locked. Okay. So anybody that knows who I'm talking about is listening to this, then you can have a little chuckle, and we'll go from there. Anyway, moving along, right? So the last thing that you would do before you turn this thing in, because this is done. I mean, we're ready to go. I have things on layers like they're supposed to be. I have my views. I have it scaled. The last thing you would do is to make sure that all these are updated. Like, this isn't updated, this isn't updated. If I save the drawing, obviously, when I go to save, it does a save as, and I'm going to call it P4-1, and I'll make this capital since it should fix it for me, and then I'm just going to hit save. Now you'll notice it updated this one here, but this guy's not updated. So how do I fix that? You just want to go to Insert, Update Field, pick whatever field, or put a window around it. Boom. Enter. There it is. Notice that it's all fixed up, 428. There you go. So this is what you have to do. If you have any questions, obviously, you're going to send them to your instructor. And I hope you have an awesome day.